Hey, welcome to Apollo City Comics. I'm Brandon.
And I'm David.
And today we're kicking off our part of the crossover event that we have of
the DFBCU.
The THINGSgiving special. The crossover event that maybe we'll do it yearly.
Every year for the next 10 years, we can promise quality thing-related content. Nah,
I bet we could do it.
It was hard to figure it all out for this month.
Yeah, for a full month.
Yeah.
We thought of the thing.
Yeah, well, it's good that we're not burning all of the... There's so many different iterations of the thing. And this month, really all we covered, we did a CLE on the... Not the... Well, it's technically a remake. The John Carpenter The Thing. The most famous one, I would say. And then today we're talking about A Thing from Another World, which is a 90s Dark Horse comic series.
Yeah, it's one of the first Dark Horse books to get put out.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't realize they were so young.
And
I
got that impression when I was reading the letter hacks. I was like, wait, they're not called letter hacks. That's just what it is in Walking Dead. Not everyone calls them the same thing.
Readers from Another World.
Readers from Another. That's so a good
cool
name. I was reading some of those at the end of the issues, and it was like you could tell from just the viewer, the reader response, like, wow, this is something special. Like Dark Horse. What's going on here? You know what I mean? And I think it's a pretty good book. I mean, we'll get into it, obviously, but I mean, it's not... I don't know. I flipped on it a lot. So it's two parts, right? It's a 2-issue thing that's called The Thing from Another World, 2-issue series, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then there's a sequel to that 2-issue series called Thing from Another World, Climate of Fear.
Yes.
And that one's 4 issues. So we read the whole 6-issue run. That's their entire sort of sequel story. And I got to say, the first 2 issues I'm not too thrilled about. The second 4, I felt much more engaged, and I thought it was more creative.
Oh yeah, definitely. There was more story development put into Climate of Fear. When we look at The Thing from Another World, I mean, for one, I thought it was weird that they created a sequel, which is understandable. You want to know what happens because at the end of The Thing, they're just left in the snow, and you're just like, man, what? That's it.
And also in the movie, they destroy their transport. They have no way of leaving. And they also have no communication. They destroyed the radio.
You just assume that they're going to die.
Yeah. I mean, as the viewer, you either have the pessimistic one, or I guess the optimistic one would be like, maybe someone will come.
In Antarctica?
Well, you think that they got to be swapping people out. And if they're not making contact regularly, the government would send someone to check it out. You would think.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think they do a really good job because we do know from the logic of the movie that you have to burn the organism for it to be gone. Mm-hmm. And they build off this line of dialogue about how that one guy, his body wasn't entirely burned. I forgot who it is.
I know who you're talking about though.
Yeah. And there's a shot of it in the movie. Mm-hmm. And he's one of the ones who just disappears. When they're trying to locate everyone, they're going through the movie. There's one guy who's just they find him dead and we don't know what happened. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow. That's true. Yeah, you're right.
And that's where they build off this series from. And they do it by, implying that, they didn't get all of them. You know what I mean? And it starts off with McCready. I keep wanting to say McCreary, who is a character in Overwatch. He's the cowboy.
Oh, that's also Ralph. I want to say it's Ralph McQuarrie. He's a concept artist too. He's
really
done Star Wars and whatnot. Some really great Star Wars work.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's what I always think of.
But McCready is wandering out in the snow. He doesn't know where Childs is anymore. So immediately you're suspicious of Childs.
Yes.
And then he gets picked up by this what's the word for it? It's a tanker, right? It's a giant ship.
Yeah.
That is literally breaking through some thin ice. And they find him and they pick him up. And then this whole series is basically McCready meeting new people, him acting totally insane. But, you're like, okay,
it's really continuing his journey and his development and his character arc in that sense. And his path to further his leadership and kind of insanity too. He
definitely has an arc. There's a part where he kind of breaks down.
Yeah. In
the story. Whereas in the movie, we know McCready is just being ready to go. It seemed like he was one step ahead of the thing in the movie. He figured out its logic and was commanding the group, even though he was just the helicopter pilot. In a real military installation, you would think there'd be a hierarchy of rank that'd be more important. But everyone's so terrified in the movie that McCready's just you know what, guys, I'm gonna straighten this out. Everyone tie yourselves up. But what else happens in the first book, really? Like, there's an attack on this tanker. Child shows up. He turns out to be still good, and then it ends kind of the same way it starts. The McCready's like knocked out and by himself.
He's on a block of ice because it was attacked by the thing.
Yeah.
And you're just like, so what's next? And it's weird because it's almost two different writers for these two books too.
Yeah, and it feels like they both just started with the same premise. Like, you could have just gotten rid of the first two books
and just made Climate of Fear,
and it would have made total sense. Like, we found this guy out in the tundra, and the story
on a block
makes sense.
Of ice, and you're like, he was on.
He was out there, so that feels weird that they're supposed to be connected because they feel totally separate.
What I do think is cool too is it's a direct pickoff.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's no time going by. Like, it literally, the thing ends, and then bam, into this comic.
Yeah.
And then this ends, and bam, into the next comic.
Which is funny, because the movie pre-boot, their, like, prequel reboot they do,
I haven't seen that since it came out. When was the last time you watched it?
3 or 4 years ago, probably. It's gotten worse every time I've seen it.
Really? I mean,
it's...
Because they use CGI and everything.
It's a lot of CGI, which is funny because... They shot all the practical effects, and you can see it in the behind the scenes. But the studio was like, no, it looks too fake. Let's use CGI.
What?
And it's like, man, what are you guys talking about? It looked way better than the CGI in the movie. At the time, that CGI was groundbreaking. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Or, I mean, probably wasn't even groundbreaking. I bet there was a movie that looked way better than that. But that's what the studio executives are saying. This is our latest technology. And then
that's so terrible. Because that's what makes
so
this movie like a cult film almost. It's really like not so much the storyline or what goes on. It's the horror. It's the props.
It's a good thriller, and it's a good like whodunit kind of thing. You're trying to figure it out. But the reason why people still watch it and talk about it so much is because of how disgusting it is.
Yeah.
It's
my favorite
alarming.
scene is when the head is coming off of the table and it has that bubble gum that's draping down on it.
That's good.
And you don't know what it is. It's so legit.
But it looks so good.
Yeah.
There's a couple parts, obviously, that look, show their age.
Yeah.
But I feel like you can connect with it more than just some digital picture that instantly, like, my brain sees a thing and doesn't think, oh, this is fake. You know what I mean? Yeah. I just see something like, whoa, that's alarming. When I watch, like, the thing pre-boot, it's like, oh, that's fake. That's a computer animated image. Like, my brain just doesn't connect to it.
Do you think we should go back to doing stuff like that? Cut out CGI more and more?
Well, it's interesting. And, I mean, this is a tangent, but one that needs to be tanged. You know what I mean? Walking Dead, the TV show, is actually a great example. At the beginning, they did a ton of practical effects. Yeah. And the only issue with practical effects is that they're expensive. And they take way more time. Yeah. Like, not only do you have to hire the right people to do it, but them actually using these things and then having to take so many cuts and, or not cuts, I'm sorry, but take so many different takes of a shot. Yeah. That could be expensive.
Yeah, having 4 of the same prop to use,
And now that the show is in its, like, 10th season and it's clear the viewership isn't as, like, anywhere close to what it was at its peak, I've noticed that it's way more digital.
Oh, wow.
And it's just cheaper, you know what I mean? And if you got to splatter blood on someone, you do it digitally, and then you don't have to worry about, like, ruining a shirt, or, like, we got to have 4 of this costume.
Yeah, we got to hire someone that's exactly good at splattering blood.
Yeah, we got to hire the right team of people who can do this, like, on a cue and everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would love it, and I think when movies do it today, they really stand out. Yeah. Like a movie like Krampus has a lot of puppetry.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Which we're talking about doing in December. At least for a CLE, a character limit exceeded. I'm trying to think of some other ones because there's been some great ones recently, but they are starting to combine it more though. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff like that in The Force Awakens where they'll have an alien costume, but then they'll CGI in a face.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And I think that's kind of cool. I mean,
if they could mix it just right, yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think the whole making everything CGI just doesn't work. Not everyone has that Disney Marvel money where it looks good for everything,
Well, I think for like a superhero genre, you almost can't not be all CGI now. Yeah. Because some of the stuff you're showing, it would be impossible to do with practical effects. And now, like, the stakes are so high in those comic book movies.
Yeah. It's crazy the level they've gone in the last couple months.
It's really like how comic books are. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's really what comic books are. Like all this crazy space stuff and all these people flying in and everything. And then you look back at a movie like X-Men, you know what I mean? From, what is that, 2000 or no, it's 1999, I think, or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
but that movie's so quaint. You know what I mean?
Gosh,
it's just like, oh, we're in Alaska. Okay, now we're at this mansion, this set that we have. Okay, and now we're at the Statue of Liberty, and that's the whole story.
That's the whole movie, yeah.
There's no crazy space travel scenes or anything.
I think they showed like a beach in the street once.
Yeah.
Like
there are like 5 sets in the X-Men, the original X-Men movie, and then you watch Avengers Endgame, and you're like, whoa,
we're everywhere.
Yeah, they're just hopping all through time and space. It's ridiculous.
That's insane. Yeah, it's really crazy when you really take a step back and think about that change and how much it affects how we really enjoy some of these movies too.
Yeah.
Like look at the effects from the original Star Wars, which weren't great.
Yeah.
But they were
not.
sci-fi and they felt right. But when you look at the Phantom Menace, you're like, this is terrible.
Phantom Menace has aged so much worse than the original trilogy.
Yeah. Seriously.
Like when I was a kid, I thought original trilogy looked old. You know, like you watch a movie, you're like, oh, this is an old movie.
Do you think it's a quantity over quality type of thing it's become now?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think
or quantity over quality. Yeah.
For these studios, it's quantity mentality. I think for sure. It's like, let's find something that works, do 12 sequels to it, and we know that it's going to at least make X amount of money,
which will cover.
And then when one of them doesn't make X amount of money, we can it, and then we do the next thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's basically what they do.
That's all it is. It's a little weird. It's a little sad. A movie like The Thing would probably never come out today in a major theater release.
Oh no!
Wasn't it way too bizarre?
When it
was a flop. It came out the same weekend as E.T.
Oh,
which is hilarious to think about. And I think also Blade Runner came out the same weekend.
Oh wow! What an epic an
epic weekend of classics. And people thought that The Thing was like even Roger Ebert said that it was just a gross movie for weirdos, and that there's nothing of value in The Thing. It's like, well, I don't know what everyone was thinking. They missed some stuff. I don't know how else to say, but that was John Carpenter's last giant release.
Really?
It wrecked his career a little bit, and he had some smaller movies. And then I think Ghost of Mars. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, wow.
Terrible movie.
Yes.
That was his last theatrical release. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. So
I want to say you're right on that part. I do remember reading something on that.
Yeah, but it's a little sad.
Man, and John Carpenter's done some great stuff in general.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Halloween. You know what I mean? Like basically inventing the slasher genre, because that's 10 years before Friday or Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, and you equate those movies as being the same, but John Carpenter laid the groundwork for
Big
sure.
Trouble in Little China.
Yeah,
They Live is one of my favorite
great.
films.
I love it
ever. But yeah, I Ghost on Mars and then The Ward in 2010.
That's right. He came back for The Ward, and that movie is very forgettable. I actually watched it and forgot all until you mentioned it right now. I'm pretty sure I got rid of it, and I have a massive movie collection.
You don't get rid of a lot.
It takes a lot for me to get rid of a movie. But if it's real bad, like Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse bad, then I get rid of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that movie's terrible. Well, anyway, before we spend 30 minutes talking about movies, oops. Sorry, Frank. It was me. I hit the mic. We were joking this was going to be Brandon because he always does, but it was me.
I'm being cautious today.
There's something about this first two, though, that are awesome. The artwork is just...
amazing.
It's like loud and colorful.
It has that painting style, and you could tell. I mean, this was totally painted, especially in that time. But it's a very big contrast to Climate of Fear. Kyle Higgins. So John Higgins. I was wrong.
Oh,
I thought it was. I saw Higgins, and I think I just assumed it was Kyle Higgins that did the Killing Joke. But no, John Higgins did the art, and it was just him. So it was just him painting everything. But this, I think it captured the essence of the film of The Thing.
I think so too. I think the only part it's a lot of blues and white, just like the movie is.
Yeah.
But when The Thing shows up, all these colors show up on the screen as well.
Yes.
So you get all these greens and purples and oranges that aren't anywhere else in the book, but it also in a way speaks to how unnatural it is compared to the setting. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was kind of interesting. The story is just super forgettable in these first two, though.
Oh, completely. Because nothing
it's pretty
really
pointless.
happens.
in a perfect world, this guy would have done the art for the next run. Because this 4 issues, Climate of Fear is much better. But I also think that
Like, I remember the characters from Climate of the Fear. Like,
me too.
The girl and, like, there was the whole team.
And I can tell you the whole
squad.
story right now. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a lot better. One more thing I want to say about the first one, though, is that the art is beautiful, and it's really nice to kind of, like, look at. There'd be some really cool prints you could make up if you're, like, a big Thing fan.
The cover's great.
It's so, like, exaggerative that in some scenes, especially, like, when there's some sort of fight or struggle, I had a difficult time understanding what was going on. And you know what I mean? Like, I've read Gundam comic books, and that's complicated to see what's going on sometimes.
You're right about that. It kind of throws you... It doesn't pace very well.
Yeah. Yeah, and some stuff does seem like... It seems like they realized they had only 2 books, and they hit it. They hit it hard. Okay, well, let's move on to Climate of Fear. So who is on this book? Who wrote this one?
This is John Arcudi.
See, I don't know any of these people, and I wonder if... I mean,
Jim Somerville.
If you don't know them, they got to be pretty...
they're
pretty
not
obscure.
They maybe they just did indie comics in that sense.
They could have just done like early Dark Horse books or something like that. Well, I do know I read in one of the letters to the editor, the readers from Another World, that their team did a lot of adaptations of movies, and that they were choosing, they didn't worry about, will there be an audience for this? They just thought about, like, what would be fun for us to do.
Well, that's cool.
None of this is, like, licensed. They didn't, like, talk to John Carpenter or anything.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think even the naming is different from the film too, and it goes back to the original movie. Yeah. Because what the name of the short story that this is all based off of is Who Goes There.
Who Goes There? Yeah. So it's which totally different.
Actually, we'll sidetrack a little bit. We were talking about this before. The novella Who Goes There is what all this is based off of. And this came out, I don't even know when it came out, honestly. I want to say, maybe I could pull it up real fast.
Like the novella?
Yeah.
I'm going to guess the 1940s.
That's what I was thinking, like 48 or something.
Because I feel like the first movie's from the 50s?
Oh, 1938.
1938. Wow, cool.
That's cool. That ties into, I'll drift off more, but into like Lovecraft and stuff like that during that era, which is really interesting, that horror growth. But it was called Who Goes There, and it was published in August of 1938 in Astounding Science Fiction. Okay. It was like 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. There was some people digging through a college, and they discovered an extended version of this book.
Oh, you were telling me about this.
Yeah. Extra like 48 pages, and the book was actually called Frozen Hell. Yeah, which is a pretty lame name, but
it's kind of cheesy, yeah.
But it had let me see, I think it was crowdfunding, and that's how they brought it to life to print it, and now you could get it on Amazon super easily. It's another 48 pages, and I want to read it. I'm really sad that I didn't read it
and see what's different on it.
Yeah, what's different, if there's the ending that's more extended, or if it's just inside filler, or what.
Interesting. I wonder if you should do it and then give it to us for a pull list. You can give us the update on a later episode.
Yeah, definitely.
I just think it's kind of interesting. That's like a trend too. Lately, it seems like releasing things after the author is dead, which I don't know how I feel about entirely. It seems weird. Like, you would think he left it out for a reason.
That was another reason why I wasn't too excited for it, because he got it published as is, and they found a manuscript at Harvard, and that's where it had.
I guess that's kind of interesting. I'm not a writer, so I don't think I take it too personally. But if I was like composing a piece of music, and I died, and there was just some unfinished piece, I don't know if I'd want people to play it, especially if I'd purposefully was like, this is bad. You know what I mean? I'm gonna shelve this.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hard to say.
It's great. I guess you could buy it now. It'd be interesting to check out. Because maybe it's different from this. I don't know what's included, of course, but this book is so short. It's like 128 pages, and the font's huge. You know what I mean?
And the story is pretty similar, right?
Super similar. I want to say that the key differences that I remember was that it was like a base of 30 people or so, and there was cattle.
Which kind of plays into what's coming up next in Climate of Fear.
Yeah, exactly.
They have some animal stuff as well.
And that's why I thought this was like more influence to the book and the roots, because it kind of had some of these elements, but that were so like missed in the previous incarnations. But it's really dead on, and I think that's super cool. And I really love how especially when you adapt something from a book or from just a story, a fable, whatever, is that you could change it, you could warp it, but you want to keep the base of it as similar as possible.
Yeah.
Like you want to show you could get it right before you change
Switch it up.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes they make in superhero movies is that show us you could do the Dark Knight right in this storyline. Follow this storyline. Show us you could do it right and then do whatever what. Because obviously you guys doing whatever what doesn't always do that well.
I partially agree with you. I don't know if Batman's the best example, though, only because there are so many iterations of Batman.
Yeah.
And it feels sort of authentic to make your own Batman story. And although I do agree, they've really botched some. But then every once in a while, you get someone like Christopher Nolan.
Oh, yeah.
Who does a great job in what is pretty much an original Batman story. Like, an example that comes to mind, though, is I Am Legend. I don't know if you've ever read that book.
I haven't read the book.
The book is from the 40s or 50s. It's by Richard Matheson. And the book's incredible, man. And the ending is so bleak and sad. And it's nothing like in the movie. In the movie, he, like, goes up and finds that other community and, like lives there. You remember the movie, right? It's old
been
now.
Years, yeah.
Yeah, at the end he meets that young woman and her son, I think.
That's right, yeah.
And they escape the city and they go find a place where people are starting life again. And all these people are like in some enclosed community. Kind of like the ending of Bird Box. Spoiler alert. But in the book, and this is spoilers if you've never read this, I guess. Sorry, Brandon. But the vampires just like bust into his house one night with like AK-47s.
Oh, that's crazy.
Like the vampires learn how to use guns like people, and they just raid his house in the middle of the night, and they take him, and they put him up in this tower, and this vampire comes up to talk to him and says like, "You're the person who comes in the night to kill our children. And we've decided as a society that we're going to put you to death."
Oh, wow.
And it like flips, like he becomes the monster. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's sneaking around and killing people.
Well, that's cool.
When society like flips on itself. It's like, that is such an interesting ending. And the movie's like, and that, when you have something like that, that's such a tight narrative, like The Thing, for instance, you should adapt it close to it. Or like Game of Thrones, you know what I mean? Don't mess with it when that guy has been meticulously putting out,
because then it turns off people from the source material.
Turns off people from the source material. And I mean, how many times has it worked out? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, how many can you list? Well, let's head on to Climate of Fear.
Yeah.
So Climate of Fear, we have a different artist. It's a much simpler art style, and I think if you've ever seen just a comic book from the 90s, it looks like that.
Exactly.
It's very standard. It's nothing special, but the writing is way more interesting.
Yeah, the characters, they have more development. Do you want to tell us what the outline of the story is about?
So the beginning, McCready is now in a camp, and is it Spain or Mexico? Do they tell you what country it is?
I want to say they do.
I can't. It's a Spanish-speaking group, and it's funny because in the first story, McCready ends up with the Polish people.
Yeah.
So they do a good job making connections to the universe of the movie. Mm-hmm. Like, we know there's an American base, we know there's a Swedish base from the movie.
Yep.
So obviously, yes, there would be other countries and their bases there. But we're taken down south because McCready is now like in this forested area.
I want to say they're just like in somewhere in South America.
Do they take them all the way back? I think so, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know exactly where it is they take them to, but we're removed from our Arctic climate. Mm-hmm. And McCready wakes up and looks outside and realizes, oh man, whatever was there has gotten out. Because at the end of the first, the Thing from Another World, he leaves with a couple of soldiers. Like a couple of survivors are with him, and we're not sure if someone's is infected. So McCready is there. There's this doctor who's, I didn't write down any of these names. I can't remember what the doctor's name is. There's a female doctor who's there, and there's...
Oh, Sabia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's pretty much kind of the same dynamic that there is in the movie.
Yes.
Where there's there's the reluctant person, there's the gung-ho guy.
It's almost to the T, because you even have that scientist that doesn't want to hurt him and all that type of stuff.
And it feels like a 80s sequel where they didn't want to change anything. They were like, we know it works, let's do the same movie again. Except this is a comic book now. And when I started reading it, I even wrote down a little note in my book. And it was like, well, I guess how many stories can you tell with The Thing? Like the premise of the alien, the story's got to be one of us is an alien. Who is it? You know what I mean?
It just depends how far they wanted to push it.
I guess. But I think in the later issues, they do bring in some new ideas, which I thought was interesting.
I do like, you're right. Like how it has more formations. Yeah. And then some of the creatures are more man-like than, aliens.
And the Thing also is like kind of adapting to what he knows they're going to do.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting.
Oh, that's right. But how he changes the test and stuff like that. Yeah.
It's a little annoying because every single one of these Thing stories, movies, and the book, these comics that we're reading right now, they all start exactly the same way. And it's like, it's just frustrating because when I started this one, I was like, man, am I doing this for a fourth time now?
Yeah.
One guy knows, everyone thinks he's crazy. There's urgency. Oh, it appears. You know what I mean? So there's only so many times you can do that. But
McCready is a lot like the first Norwegian guy they meet that's shooting the dog. Yeah.
And he's just lucky that he didn't get shot. Mm-hmm. And in that pre-boot, I think that guy is kind of the McCready character. I can't remember now. I'd have to watch it again. But there's almost like that's the problem with that movie, the newer Thing from the 2000s, 2000 teens or whatever. They should have just done some very different stuff. If they had taken risks like in this book, I feel like it would have been a little more memorable. But it's almost it's almost a reboot. Like there's a lot of it where it's like a remake. But then the twist at the end is that it's right before the original movie. So when you watch it and you recognize some of the scenes and a lot of the same stuff happens, it's like, well, why would I even watch these two together?
How is that a sequel?
Why would I
a prequel? When
it's the same movie.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit weird. Well, let me see. Oh, some things I noticed about Climate of Fear. They do this in both of them. They do a really good job of like having different languages for all these people. Mm-hmm. Some of the Spanish was a little bit wonky, and I know that like knowing very little Spanish, it seemed like when I read it, I was like, this just seems like incorrect. And then I was reading in one of the letter things that someone called them out, and they were like, oh, well, our writer just had a friend who spoke Spanish, so we asked him, and we just put in verbatim what he translated.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, this is an indie comic book. When you don't have any kind of department or and I guess it's the 90s, so it isn't like you could just Google it or have some kind of web form about it.
App
but man, you couldn't have like called a school, you know what I mean?
A bit more research.
Let me find my local public university. Hello. Please help me with this very easy translation. I need these 6 sentences in Spanish. But anyways, I thought it was a cool idea.
Yeah.
It definitely ties that in. Let me see what else I have in here.
I see that a lot. I was listening to, it was a Clash song. I think it's Spanish Guns too.
Okay.
And I was asking my girlfriend, I was just like, so what's the translation here?
Yeah.
And she's like, this doesn't really make sense. Like it's these guys just trying to like speak another language. And it doesn't make sense. Nothing correlates.
I don't think you should go for it unless you're sure. You know what I mean? It's the equivalent of getting like a Chinese character tattooed on your body. It's like, you don't know for sure what that says, man. You might think, but that tattoo artist might be messing with you. Well, the story starts off the same. McCready's getting crazy. People lock him up. They tranquilize him because he's so insane. In the second... That's pretty much the first issue, like the setup. In the second issue, it actually starts off with this really cool scene of like all these characters around the campfire. And there's this really nice lighting, like everyone's colored red. And then there's smoke in front of people. And it happens at different parts. And that person will be a different color than everyone else. And I thought it was a really interesting way to kind of show that like, is this person different? Like it raises suspicion in your brain. I thought that was a really interesting thing to do through color. And actually the character who is shown with that light, who's different, is the doctor who's like reluctant and doesn't want to participate because obviously they're explaining the tests again. Okay, we just got to test these people's blood. And he's like, well, I'm not letting you guys touch me. You know what I mean? The same thing. And actually exactly how in the movie, that one guy gets shot on accident because he's just getting riled up. They shoot the doctor because he pulls a gun on someone.
Yeah.
And the doctor dies and they bury the doctor. But then we find out that the Thing, it was the doctor. Yeah. It was the foreshadowing in the book. And the Thing just pretended to die so that they would bury it. And he comes out of the ground like a zombie and starts attacking this camp.
And that's what's cool is that it's showing evolution within the Thing too, which is something the other book doesn't do at all.
At all. They just do the same story again.
Yeah. It's the same monster, and he continues to do this. What's cool about this one too is that they really stretch the limits of the horror aspect. The other one, it does in a way, but like this one, the scene where the doctor has his hands literally in their skulls,
like morphing into their face
and changes really cool. them up. That's the best part, is that this art is probably very, very much more comic booky in a sense, like just real basic. But the monster aspect is the best part.
I was gonna say the creature design is really nice.
Yeah,
and
very.
I definitely don't want to diminish that by my comment on the art style.
No,
When the monsters show up, they are
full-fledged.
Yeah, exactly. And he goes above what you see in the movie, because you can, obviously, because it's a comic book. Like, there's some big scale monsters in this little story.
But he also keeps the same like meat formations.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
It doesn't feel different. It doesn't feel like, oh, I'm reading something. Like,
or
you could see it connect to the universe.
Yeah, but you can tell that the monster's thinking has evolved, but not its physical aspect.
There's something else I wrote here, but my my handwriting's so bad.
Oh, and then they think MacReady's infected.
They think MacReady's infected. Well, after this whole thing goes down, all these sheep are killed.
Which I thought was a cool callback to the novel.
I was going to say, that's the animal thing. And then they're not sure, like, well, man, it could be anyone. And one of the sheep is infected and ends up, like, taking over this guy. It's kind of crazy. Like, things just happen really quick.
Because in the book, I want to say that there's a cow or something, a cattle that they think they're trying to figure out who's infected. And they're all eating the meat and drinking the milk from these cows. And more people get infected because the thing was actually one of the cows producing the milk. And they were like, we haven't seen it in like a week or 2 weeks. Like, it's gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, actually, it's been slowly infecting everyone through its milk.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
Because it only takes one cell. And they talk about that a lot in this book as well. There's some, you know what? This group, after all these like opening things start, though, they handle it way better than the group in the movie does.
Oh, so much
better. Like, they spend the night all around the campfire. And then before they get attacked by the zombie-ish doctor who just is the thing, everyone goes to like an isolated area so they can get rest. Like, they each go to their cabin and they have two guys walking around as guards.
Yeah.
And so they know where everyone's at. Whereas in the movie, it's like every other scene, they're just wandering around. They're just like going off on their own.
They're trying to be like men about it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good. No.
Well, I'm going to kind of skip ahead to the next issue. Basically, MacReady, who's been tranquilized during that whole last issue, wakes up and tells him, he's kind of pessimistic. He's like, you guys might as well just kill yourselves. You're all dead now. Because he's assuming that, almost all of them could be the thing at this point. And MacReady does the blood test thing again, gets everyone together. He actually runs into Childs. Childs is out in the woods with some other people. And we know that Childs was not infected in the last book, you know what I mean? And he's always been the red herring, like in the Thing franchise. Yeah. Even in the movie, we assume that he's going to be one of them. But basically, they end up doing this blood test again. Childs is administering it. And the issue ends with MacReady like, okay, let me show you one more time, because he's been cutting his thumb open, every time he meets someone new. Puts his blood in there, they torch it, and the blood, like, leaps out.
Yeah.
And MacReady, like, escapes. And then you go into the final issue of this thing where MacReady, we find out that he is good. He does the test again on himself. And
he realizes that it was the setup at that point. And Childs conducted the
test. So when MacReady put his blood in there, Childs had his thumb in there, and he's a thing. And his thumb was enough to make the blood act that way.
Child's transformation to the Thing is the craziest one.
His looks insane. He looks like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle villain.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like which Looney Tune character I'm trying to think of, but the way his mouth is, it looks like the wolf from the Looney Tunes.
Yeah, it kind of does.
But just like warped with tentacles coming out. Literally tentacles now, too.
Yeah, they get way out there. One thing I thought was interesting, too, because they even make one of the soldiers who was with Childs was like, I can't believe we had him in charge of the blood tests. How did he even pass his blood test? And MacReady was like, if he gave himself his own blood test and was holding it, he could have told the cells not to react to the fire.
That's right, yeah.
And I was like, whoa, that's kind of crazy.
Full control.
I haven't thought about that at all. But it changes what we know the monster can and can't do, I think, without totally breaking the rules.
Yeah.
And the Thing now has seen, like 4 or 5 of these blood tests, and they're trying to figure out, okay, how can we prevent
and that's the cool
them
part.
from finding out.
The Thing finally has, like, its own character arc, you know? It's changing. It's going through change, and you see, like, how much smarter he's getting compared to these people. And it's cool because it's supposed to be adapting. And that's something they point out in the book too, is that they see a bird fly over and they kill it right away. Because if the Thing sees a bird and it can fly and go over distances, it'll just attach itself to the bird and leave and
then
like infect. Yeah. And it shows like hints that it can evolve, and they think it can evolve. But the film and the previous comic really doesn't. It's just a mindless monster. It's just a
monster, and then McCready finds out how to defeat it, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, once they figure out that the flame does it, that's all they really need to know.
And this one, they have to keep outsmarting and trying to catch up to the monster, who's actually ahead of them at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we find, there's a couple different things. Like, part of the group tries to escape, and the Thing is there to destroy the helicopter. Mm-hmm. There's a character who's really hot-headed with like a big mustache and a machete.
Yeah, the main lieutenant or whoever. And he actually goes through the Walking Dead procedure.
He does.
Chops his arm off.
He's getting assimilated by the Thing, and someone chops his arm off, and it works. I guess it doesn't spread fast enough. Mm-hmm. But the book ends with the doctor, lady doctor, this hot-headed guy with one arm, and McCready going out to this hangar. And it seems like everyone who's left are Things now.
Yeah.
And they're building a spaceship out of all this military machine, which I thought was interesting. I was like, is the Thing just trying to get home?
Well, to me, I thought
or are
that
they
was
going to bring
point.
Back a returning force or something?
We think it's always sinister? Thought it was just trying to get home. Always. Like, even in the movie, even all that. Yeah. I thought that was the whole point.
So if they just let that Thing leave, but you can't let something like that leave.
Like,
you can't
what if he does come back? Or what if it's going to spread? What if it goes to China, man?
Yeah, what if it finds a better place to land?
Yeah.
And then you're done for.
Yeah.
So they're building this thing. They decide that they're going to burn the whole hangar down from the outside. And McCready actually, it seems like he gives up at this moment. He pulls a Han Solo.
Yeah.
He says, I'm not down for this final battle, guys, and walks away. And then just comes right back.
Yeah.
It doesn't last very long. At first I was like, man, I hope they don't leave this arc on McCready just being a coward and leaving, but no, it's a little predictable. They burn this thing, and then out of the hangar that's on fire, a giant thing emerges. This huge one that's like stories tall.
Coolest. It reminds me of what was that thing in Halo?
Oh, the flood.
Oh, the flood too. Actually, yeah. Well, that's very true. That was very influenced by this as well.
There's a bunch of stories that seem kind of thing-like. I don't know. Have you ever seen that Twilight Zone? Will the real Martian please stand up?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Which I wonder if Eminem got something about will the real Slim Shady please stand up? It has to be a reference to Twilight Zone, right?
Yeah.
That's a great episode. It's kind of like The Thing without the gore. Is really what that episode is. It's all about tensions rising and stuff. That's if you haven't seen that Twilight Zone, you guys should watch it. But anyway, yeah. So what ends up happening though is the U.S. military firebombs a giant thing right before it attacks McCready and kills these people, and assumedly they've escaped and they're all going to be okay now. It seems like it has a happy ending. I just love that in this book, and we didn't really touch on this, but almost every single issue of this 6-issue series, there's one moment where they're running away from an explosion, and it just ends with the biggest explosion, and McCready is 20 feet away from this giant monster that just got firebombed by fighter jets, and I have a hard time believing that it just didn't blow him up in the immediate vicinity. How accurate can you be when dropping bombs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on. With something like this, and the fighters that they're using, everything.
Yeah.
I'm looking this up real fast. I didn't realize how many sequels there are to this comic.
Oh, really? Well, tell us. What do we have?
There's... Okay, wow. Okay. So there's The Thing from Another World, Climate of Fear. Mm-hmm. The next one is Eternal Vows, and we just skipped over that one.
We skipped over that one because when I did the preliminary reading online about this thing, I found out that it's just a separate story.
Exactly.
And I thought these two were more connected, but it turns out they're both kind of separate stories. They are connected. They're literally connected.
I would say these two are...
But you could enjoy them as separate stories.
Yes.
There might be something that you don't... Like, they do talk about how they met up with Childs already.
Yeah.
So that part might be a little confusing. I mean, let's be honest. If you're a Thing fan, you want to read it, it's 6 issues.
It's great. Well, yeah. And that's
it's probably
the thing.
not super
I think
expensive.
if you're a John Carpenter Thing fan, you would stop here. Like, we stopped here.
Well, maybe we should. Well, next year
Thanksgiving.
on Thanksgiving, we couldn't burn through all of it.
But
in the first one.
no. Okay. Plus, it was turning us off more and more.
I was like, man, I can't do any more of this right now.
But there's another one called Eternal Vows,
Okay.
Questionable Research, and the Northman Nightmare.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's like a Norwegian The Thing story, and it has like a Viking thing on it.
What? And I'm pretty sure that the video game for...
I wanted to ask you about that. I haven't played it. I wish I played it.
Next year for Thanksgiving. We should, though, for
at
real.
least
We got to
content.
do it. Yeah, at least we have content lined up. No, that game, it's a little rough around the edges. But the cool thing about the game is...
What's aged super hard?
Yeah. It was an early... It's from the Xbox PS2 generation. I think it's on both of those consoles. And it was an early third-person shooter before they had really learned how to lock that down. So whenever you go to third-person shooters of that day and age, they feel really old.
Yeah.
But even at that time, I feel like it would have felt a little bit strange. The gameplay, like mechanics-wise, is probably the weakest point. But it's actually a really cool game because you have people in your party.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You meet survivors. You have to protect them. You can't let them get killed by the Thing.
Does the Thing look cool?
The monster design's pretty cool. I mean, I think this book looks a little bit nicer from what I remember. But what's cool about that game is, like, unknowingly, one of your party can turn into the Thing.
Oh, wow.
Like, if they got infected, like, and then suddenly you could just have, like, a little mini boss fight all of a sudden. Wow. And have to burn this thing.
That's cool.
It's really cool, man. It's a interesting game. It's one of the better movie tie-in video games. Mm-hmm. That'd be a good WeDap episode, like T3B3
Are you
movie
McCready
tie-ins.
or...
You are McCready. I think you're McCready. It's been a little bit for myself.
We'll find out in a year.
You have an Xbox One, don't you? Or did you get rid of it?
Oh, no, I don't have one. Sam has one.
I feel like it's backwards compatible. I feel like you can just pop that thing in Xbox One.
I'll try it out.
I could be wrong. But I would say the same thing about this, actually. I've read a lot of like movie or TV show tie-in comics, like whenever something ends and they write like, you know, like Firefly. There's so many different Firefly movie things. And some of them are okay. But this is one of the more enjoyable ones, Climate of Fear in particular.
Yeah, definitely.
I read it and felt like, wow, they paid their dues to the original source, and they did some new stuff without trampling over it or feeling like they're trying to rewrite what happened in the movie. Exactly. It was very respectful and just smart. It was like, wow, okay, this is cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's why we decided to stop, because once it switched to different characters, different regions and all that, we just wanted to keep that containment that you can go from the film straight to this. Yeah. And that's all you need to know, you know?
It is way better than the prequel. And in the time that you could watch the prequel, you could read this like 6 times and it'll be way more enjoyable.
Don't even.
That movie's bad.
You fought us so hard. I wanted to rewatch it because it's been years, but you fought us so hard to rewatch it. There's
just nothing to say about it. There's like nothing to say about it other than, oh, it's just like the first one, but the effects are bad and I don't care about any of the characters. Like, it's just inferior and there's nothing creative to say about that. It could have been, it might have been more interesting if they had kept the practical effects.
Maybe.
But they made the same movie again. Yeah. And it's like,
at least in the Thing, yes, it's the practical effects are what essentially made it a cult film. But the storyline wasn't bad. The writing wasn't bad.
The music's great.
Oh, the music's great.
Yeah.
I write short stories to the soundtrack.
Kurt Russell does a great performance. Like him and John Carpenter just knocked it out of the park 3 times.
Childs, the dude that plays Childs, that dude is awesome.
Another John Carpenter regular
that was
too.
Like his second movie too.
Yeah.
And he does a lot of voiceovers for a lot of stuff too, and it's you could always tell because he has such an awesome voice.
Yeah. That's really cool.
I mean, overall, this guy was the co-author of Logan's Run. Oh, never mind. I read the wrong thing. That just caught my eye real fast. I'm sorry. I was like, what?
Disinformation.
Yeah.
Okay, and wrapping up. Well, is there anything else you want to toss in on this thing conversation? Is there something you'd like to say?
No. It's crazy because I'm not a big horror fan at all. Like, I don't really get
That's interesting to me.
I've watched more horror in the time I've known you.
That's weird.
Than I've ever in my entire life, dude.
Well, you seem like such a Thing fan, and that seems like such a.
I have like 3 Thing T-shirts. We play the board game.
Yeah, board game's great.
The board game's great. We'll record it one day.
We should. That's the best Thing experience.
Yeah.
Like other than the original movie, you just get like 4 or 5 friends and play that Thing board game.
Outpost 51 or
something like that.
Yeah.
Outpost 31, 50, something.
Whatever.
One.
Just start Googling the Thing.
The Thing board game.
And it'll pop up. Buy it. Don't even question it.
No,
just get it. It's so much fun. Everything about it.
Well, it's just funny to me that you're not a horror fan because I feel like The Thing is not a base horror fan. Like if you weren't a horror fan, you'd probably be like, oh, I like Annabelle or something. Or oh, I really like. It's
kind of a deep cut in the horror spectrum.
It's a next level for sure. It's not an entry level movie, so that's interesting.
But it's influenced so much. I don't know. I'm also a really big Lovecraft fan. Maybe that's why I like it so much.
Which is also classic horror, Brandon. You're not giving yourself enough credit. There's a lot of that stuff.
Oh man, dude! Speaking of horror, real fast, I never told you, but Call of Cthulhu, the video game. I told you I got it. It was like $15.
Terrible, right?
It is terrible if you paid $60 for it.
Oh, okay.
It is so awesome if you paid like $12-15.
Really?
Dude, yeah.
I've been there before.
Yeah. And I'm so glad I got it. And it was so much fun. And have you read a lot of Lovecraft?
I haven't. And I have a book of Lovecraft short stories, and I've just never gotten around to reading it.
I have one. It's taken me so long because they're so dense in general.
Yeah.
But I really want to read a series called Providence by Alan Moore.
And it's all Lovecraft.
It's all Lovecraft. Yeah. And there's so many calls to Lovecraft that you need to know some Lovecraft.
Can I just propose something right now, and then let's sign on to it? No matter how bad the idea is.
Yeah, right.
Let's do in February Lovecraft month. You know what I mean? And me and you will do.
I almost spat all over our equipment.
We'll do Providence. We'll do Providence. We'll read a Lovecraft short story.
I'll tell you which one to read.
Okay, perfect. And then we'll play Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth for Xbox, because that one's supposed to be great. It's super expensive, and I found it at a pawn shop for like $1.
Yeah, you have it
years ago.
Okay,
yeah, it was one of the last Xbox games I was looking for, and when I found it so cheap, I was like,
February's a short month, but it's going to be long.
Yeah, right. Let's do it. Let's do a Lovecraft.
Oh, I'm so down.
February.
I would love to. Because Providence, dude, it's dense too. Like, we should start reading now.
Probably not a bad idea. I mean, the first time you read Watchmen, you finish it and you're like, oh, I got to read it again.
Yeah.
I need to like make sure I know what was happening in this thing. And that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I'm down.
It's really because at the end of every issue, there's like journal entries that are like 10 pages. And
Alan Moore loves that stuff, man. He just loves it.
He just wants to. Alan Moore writes way too much.
I'll tell you what. We'll do it. You can read all the little letters and I'll skip them. And then we'll find out if I missed something
some of
in
them
the
are
experience.
essential.
Like, how essential, though, is what I'm wondering.
Like, it puts together a lot of the story. Yeah, I know. I tried to skip it. But you know what? It is broken up into 3 acts. So we could take on 1 act at a time.
Let's do that. And we'll see how hefty it is.
Yeah. Because the artwork, Jason Burrows, man, that dude just knows how to mess with your head. And you really have to appreciate comics and the element of comic book storytelling. The elements of comic book storytelling. Just really what he's able to do with paneling, and how he calls back different things back and forth, and how that book messes with your head. And I think that's beautiful.
I'm down.
Yeah. Anything that just leaves me like, what the... At the end of a book, and the very last issue took forever to come out. And once you see what happens, this is just a pure love letter to Lovecraft. Yeah.
Hopefully we can expect the same with Doomsday Clock.
Oh God, I know. Jesus Christ. We're going to do it. That's going to be the end of the year episode.
It is.
Yeah.
If it
comes out. If it doesn't get delayed 3 more months.
We're going to have to cut something out for Lovecraft month to fit in the Doomsday Clock episode.
It's going to come out for my birthday in April, I'm sure.
Jeez.
Yeah, that sounds great. But there are 2 like prequels to this. It's the Necronomicon, and I'm drawing a blank on the other.
But they were written after Providence.
They're written before Providence.
Oh gosh!
But they're prequels.
I feel like I should read it then.
Yeah. Well, no, one's like a sequel / prequel to it because it happens within the span of
a sequel to the prequel.
Yeah, it's a prequel before the sequel.
Yeah.
And I want to see how many people are just like thinking like, wait.
I was thinking of Between the Buried and Me.
That's exactly what I was thinking of.
Sequel to which one is that? Sequel to the prequel?
Sequel to the prequel,
okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one, yeah.
But oh man, we're just on a tangent now. We
well, let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
Do you have any pull lists for us? What have you been reading? What have you been watching? What have you been playing?
I am drawing. I was playing Outer Worlds, and we were just talking about this.
You were telling me how much you enjoying this, and I meant to bud this in because we were just talking about that IGN review. They gave Mandalorian an 8.5, and you were like, "They're really harsh." They like tore up Outer Worlds.
I can see why.
They gave it like a 3.5 or something.
Oh, jeez.
Like they gave it something. Let me look it up. I remember when I saw it the other day, and then I remember you like being really excited about it. I was like, "Man, what's going on here?" Well, but I also don't trust IGN's reviews. I don't trust
IGN's reviews, though. The thing about Outer Worlds is that I was a big KOTOR fan, like obsessive with KOTOR.
I'm sorry, it was an 8.5. I don't know what I was thinking.
Oh, well, cool.
I must have saw another game and got the names confused.
That maybe. Obsidian, who ran KOTOR. Obsidian. What was I? Obsidian. What is that?
Character from the Odyssey.
Yeah, right. Yeah. They put out Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, and I love those games. Yeah. Super classics. So they should just make those movies.
I've been saying that for years, man.
Yeah. So many great characters. Don't just give me Darth Revan and Darth Malak.
Or at least give Rey a Bastila style double lightsaber.
Oh man, that'd be cool.
I love that, but
whatever. Yeah. What do we know? We're just the fans.
Yeah.
But I also like Fallout New Vegas. Okay. And this game is basically KOTOR and Fallout just slammed together into a sandwich. Honestly, dude,
I should do it.
You know how in KOTOR you go and you have to like fix the ship and go in the engine room and fix the engine. Dude, this happens in Outer Worlds. And the engine looks just like the engine in KOTOR.
They just like pulled it out.
Yes.
Well, yeah. I don't know. Weren't they planning for a while to do Knights of the Old Republic 3? But something happened.
They turned it into an online game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Old Republic, right?
Yeah.
I've never been
into
like the
MMOs. Videos.
The videos were cool.
Yeah.
There was that one trailer of like all those Jedi showing up, and then the Sith were like on top of them. There was some cool videos. There was some cool stuff,
but it was never a game.
Yeah. It's a bummer.
Man, and there's always a rumor that they'll do another one, but I don't think they will.
Well, now I don't think they can because EA owns Star Wars. Like Disney gave the licensing, the video game licensing. Yeah. I shouldn't say EA owns Star Wars, but EA is in charge of Star Wars.
Which is terrible because ever since they took control, the games have just...
All they've done is Battlefront, I think.
They're not
it's
good.
Been panned.
I have Battlefront 2 and I never played it.
I was almost thinking about buying Battlefront 2 because it's like $7 now on PS4 and all the DLC's free. And I was like, well,
I've never done it.
I bought the first one and it's 4 planets and you have to pay for the rest of them. And I was like, this is obnoxious.
I remember getting home and putting on that first Battlefront because I pre-ordered it and I got off of work and I went straight to GameStop upstairs in the mall and I went to go pick it up and I spent like $120 on the special edition and all that and I was like, this is crap.
That's a bummer. It's not as bad as Danny when he bought Alien Colonial Marines. He bought the collector's edition for $360 and he spent a bunch of money. And that game is like one of the worst games of all time.
I did that for Fallout 4. I want to say because it had the Pip-Boy.
I have the same thing. And everyone's got one of those things and they can't get rid of it.
It's in my trunk right now. Dude. I'm trying to give it to Eric.
Would you want to buy mine? You know what I mean? No, I'm just joking. You can have two, one on each arm.
What's terrible about that is that it sold out right away, and because everyone in the world wanted a Pip-Boy.
Yeah, it was so cool.
Yeah, and then me and Sam found it on eBay for like almost double the price. It was like I paid close to $220 or something for mine.
Jeez.
And Sam spent like $20 less, and we got it and we were super excited. And then my phone at the time didn't even fit. I had like a 6 Plus, and it wasn't compatible for it.
And no one thought about this when that thing came out, but in Fallout, you have to pause to use your thing.
Yeah.
Or you're going to get shot or something, or be exposed to radiation.
Yes.
Like you're trying to take a potion really fast or something. Not a potion, but a stim pack. you're not going to look down at your phone in real time and click through the menu to get to it. You're just going to hit B and then go there because you don't want to die.
Yes.
It's no one thought about that though. Like, everyone was so excited, and now like you can't get rid of them. They're
what's funny is that Sam later bought Fallout 76 was announced. They announced it with the bundle with the helmet and everything.
Oh, and that was a scandal too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a scandal in two ways. One, Fallout 76 sucked.
Yeah. Yes,
and I played it the first week and I never touched it again. It's been almost a year. But something with the helmet was recalled, and he said, I don't know if he's gotten it yet.
It was recalled, and then there was also supposed to be this bag, this like duffel bag.
Yeah, the duffel bag
that they never sent. And then they were like, we'll send it to you guys. And then when they finally sent it like a year later, it was just like really low quality material.
Yeah, I want to say that.
It's just an insult, man.
It's terrible.
But Outer Worlds?
Oh, yeah, Outer Worlds.
Outer Worlds is good, though?
Outer Worlds is fun. I haven't played it too much.
Okay.
But I got like at least 3 or 4 hours into it. I haven't played it too much. But yeah, I'm like 4 hours into the game. And it's pretty cool.
That's light for an RPG. That's just the starting.
Yeah. I'm on different planets. You have a lot of missions. It's you have a squad just like you do in KOTOR, and you have like the followers, and you have to, all that type of stuff. So it's definitely worth it if you like Star Wars. And it's funny because every single character like belongs to a corporation, so they like say a slogan after everything.
That's weird,
and it's super weird and it's super cheesy, but it's so funny though.
I'd be so down to check that out, man. I'm super down.
And then this week the new Star Wars game comes out, and I'm hyped because I have it pre-ordered on my PlayStation, and that's gonna hit it at midnight. So
I tell me how it is. I don't want to buy it. Right now I haven't bought neither one, but I really want to play Death Stranding, and I really want to play Luigi's Mansion 3, and I can't decide which one I want to go for.
As of right now, I'd say Luigi's Mansion.
Well, it seems like Death Stranding's getting really mixed reviews, which makes me really curious.
But I also don't want to spend like $70 on the game. Like.
Yeah. Well, then I was thinking this the other day. Luigi's Mansion 3 is never going to go down in price because Nintendo just always keeps their stuff at 60. Mm-hmm. So if I buy Luigi's Mansion 3, play through that, by the time I'm done, Death Stranding will be like $40.
Yeah. And
then at least I'll save some money instead of spending $120. What I've heard about
Death Stranding is that you're just doing a bunch of messenger missions.
I get that. But I also... I mean, I play Animal Crossing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
I'm not. There's some games where if it's engaging, I'm down to do nothing. I'm down to do a bare minimum. So I don't know. It depends on how. Will it be creative? Like how you traverse all these areas, and
that's true.
You're going across country. Does it look different?
To attack.
Weird.
Yeah.
It's going to be super bizarre.
Yeah.
But I've played all the Metal Gear Solid games. I've done that whole series. Okay. And I know, like, I'm expecting it to be bizarre and strange. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to be strangling people and shooting people in the head with suppressors and stuff, but I'm still down. He's got my money.
Yeah.
But Nintendo might have my money first. They've had it longer than he has. Myself, I don't think I have much to add, man. I mean, we haven't talked about this on the channel at all, but I just moved into a house.
Yes.
And we're here right now. This is the first episode in a different location.
And it's great.
It might sound a little different. I don't know.
It's more comfortable though.
It's more comfortable. It's quieter.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to not having random kids running around outside. Because I lived in an apartment right in front of the swimming pool. It's like only so much you can
do. What else? I think I'm reading Swamp Thing. We're prepping for Swamp Thing.
Yeah. Sorry, you have Swamp Thing.
And then man, what else have I been reading? I think I've read so much. I don't remember what I've read, honestly, over the last week or two. Because I went through like a wormhole, and I can't even recall.
Well, sounds memorable.
Yeah, right? I think I've just been in a zone, too.
But sometimes you get like that. When you binge something, it's kind of hard to recall some of these things.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think, it's also, I'm fried out. It's National Novel Writing Month. Okay. And this happens every November. And I've always wanted to participate, and I never have. And now I have the chance to participate.
Oh, okay.
And you basically write a novel in 30 days.
Unemployed, sorry.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Honestly. You basically write a novel in 30 days. Every day you're supposed to write 1,600 words. So if you miss a day, dude, you're writing 3,000 plus words the next
words.
day. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I missed a day and a half, so yesterday I wrote like 4,000 words. And I don't think I've ever written that much of a story at once.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that that's been fun. It's been interesting, and it's
That is interesting.
It's honestly made everything else in my life seem so much easier than writing a damn novel. Because like even if I do an article, I write for the Daily Fandom, I write for the Collectors Club, and I'm also gonna be writing for a website called Out of the Loop that's starting up right now. That's like a news website, so it'd be cool for that. But it's made all those assignments seem like cake. Like the research aspects of them, I have to write a $600,000 word review. Cake. Because I could do like 3,000 words of a story that I'm making up. And that takes me all day. So that's been a lot of research because it's like a lot of sci-fi aspects, a lot of real life aspects, and a lot of like fantasy aspects going into one. And it's turning into something. I'm on week 2. I'm alive. And I've kept up. So
that's cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to do like, you have to read it to us. That'll be a podcast. Like like an Audible thing, you know what I mean?
I should, honestly.
Yeah, ebook.
And I have another project coming out that you guys are part of that we'll announce soon.
Oh yeah.
And that'll be a video documentary on El Paso and some cool stuff with creativity people. But that's it. I can't even think what I've been reading a lot of Catwoman comics.
Weird.
Because I'm doing a podcast for the Daily Fandom.
Oh, okay.
And we're kind of checking out the evolution of the character since they've announced a new actress. Who is it? Lenny Kravitz's daughter?
Zoe Kravitz.
Yeah, Zoe Kravitz. Yeah. So it's really just to analyze the character. And
interesting.
Catwoman just doesn't interest me, dude.
Well, I mean, I feel like you only do so much.
Yeah.
She's the thief with the sometimes heart of gold.
Yeah.
She's kind of on their side, but always on her side. That's what Catwoman's all about.
Honestly. And I'm reading Tom King's run as it comes out because it's great. Okay. I love Tom King's run on Batman. I mean, I wasn't a fan of it, but then I finally caught on. And then I was like, dang, this guy is... And he's a great guy, too. But we did Mr. Miracle and all that. Yeah. It's the same guy. I think that's enough Catwoman for me. Honestly. Like, what more can you say, you know? But that's kind of it. Yeah. I want to say so.
Well, you know what? Come back for some Swamp Thing later this month. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. That'll probably be a longer episode. We're reading issues 11 through 24. Mm-hmm. We're picking up where we left off last time.
Yeah, so it'll be a Swamp Thing part 2, really.
Yeah, and it's funny because I actually labeled the first one part 1 for some reason.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, we were going to do Alan Moore's back then.
Oh.
But something happened, and I think a movie came out or something. Our schedule got thrown off. But yeah, so check out those issues of the original Swamp Thing run, 11 through 24, and come on right back for the chats. We'll talk about
it. For the THINGSgiving. After that, we have 2 episodes left of the year.
Yeah.
One's The Star Wars.
Whoa, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I'm so down.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited about that.
Which is based off the original script that George Lucas wrote.
Yeah.
And it is so different. But if you're a fan of Star Wars, like, lore and all that, you're going to love it. Because Starkiller... A character's named Starkiller.
Yeah.
And that's who's in the Force Unleashed. Cool. It's so cool. Anyways. And hopefully, potentially, we wrap up Doomsday Clock.
But we'll have something else planned.
Yeah.
So be ready for a Christmas episode or something. Because that's not going to happen. Yeah, I'm calling it. But we'll find out.
We should have a bet. Do you think it'll happen?
A bet?
I think it'll happen.
I think it won't happen. And whichever one of us wins gets to plan the other episode.
Down. All right, done. We'll find out.
Done. All right.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging, David.
Thank you.
Have a good one.